The Dallas Cowboys find themselves once again navigating the kind of turbulence that has become all too familiar to fans who have followed the franchise through its long stretch of unmet expectations since the glory years of the 1990s. And this week, the storm centers on injuries, inconsistent performances, and a rising chorus of overreactions that reflect both the passion and the frustration of one of football's largest and most vocal fan bases, starting with the news surrounding star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, who reportedly suffered a high ankle sprain in the team's latest game. An injury that ESPN's Todd Archer and a chorus of Cowboys beat reporters believe could sideline him anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks, though the team is currently refusing to place him on injured reserve, signaling some optimism that the damage is less severe than it might have been, even as team owner Jerry Jones acknowledged that, while it was not as serious as it could have been, the situation nonetheless puts a major dent in the Cowboys' offensive plans, and Stephen Jones quickly reinforced the idea that while Lamb himself told reporters after the game that he believed he might be able to suit up by week 4, the team's medical staff does not share that confidence, especially given that Lamb, who initially wasn't in a walking boot, was later spotted wearing one the following day at the team facility, a sign that the ankle had swelled or stiffened in the aftermath of the injury. As is so often the case with these types of sprains, which history suggests can take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks for full recovery, a reality that makes it highly unlikely the Pro Bowl wideout will be on the field against the Green Bay Packers or the New York Jets, leaving Dak Prescott without his most trusted weapon at precisely the time when the Cowboys' offense, still trying to find rhythm under pressure, can least afford to lose him. And yet, this is only one thread in a much larger tapestry of issues facing Dallas. Because while the absence of Lamb is both glaring and newsworthy, the deeper story is how quickly narratives in Cowboys Nation spiral into overreaction, from the social media drumbeat demanding that rookie tackle Tyler Guyton or right tackle Terrence Steele be benched, to the armchair general managers calling for desperate signings such as Jadeveon Clowney, to the frustrated corners of the fan base who, in the wake of defensive collapses, have even floated trading away cornerback Trevon Diggs or firing defensive coordinator turned head coach Matt Eberflus, suggestions that range from impractical to borderline impossible, and yet all of them reflect a gnawing truth. The Cowboys are teetering on the edge of an identity crisis, one that pits their lofty preseason expectations against the reality of roster flaws and coaching gaps that have been exposed through the first 3 weeks of the season. To begin with the offensive line, a perennial point of pride and yet now a recurring problem, critics have zeroed in on Guyton, the rookie left tackle whose struggles are impossible to hide because, as evaluators note, when he loses a rep, he loses it catastrophically, whiffing on a block in full view of cameras and fans, lunging off balance, surrendering pressures that disrupt entire drives, while Steele, once considered a steadying presence, is in the midst of what analysts are calling his worst stretch of football in years, compounding the issue by making the right edge of the line just as unstable as the left. Though, to be fair, Guyton did show some incremental improvement in his third game, perhaps a glimmer that experience and reps will eventually pay off. And yet this is cold comfort to a fan base that has watched New Orleans Saints pressure packages overwhelm the Cowboys' front, exposing not just Guyton and Steele, but also center Brock Hoffman, who delivered a shaky performance that raised red flags about whether the interior is any more reliable than the edges, leaving Dallas in the unenviable position of riding out the season with a line that is, at best, average, and at worst, porous enough to derail the entire offense, for the simple reason that there are no ready-made replacements. Nathan Thomas, a seventh-round pick who wasn't projected to make the roster, has never played right tackle at the NFL level, meaning he cannot realistically be considered a solution, and so the Cowboys, barring some seismic mid-season signing, must grit their teeth and hope for development rather than salvation, with the true reckoning likely coming in the offseason when Steele's contract makes him a candidate to be cut, and the team will once again scour the draft or free agency for a cornerstone tackle. But even as the offensive line stumbles, The defensive front, once heralded as the most fearsome pass rush in football, has looked toothless since week one, registering few pressures, no game-changing sacks, and none of the chaos that was supposed to define their identity, which is why fans and pundits alike have begun pounding the table for the Cowboys to unleash Jadeveon Clowney, the veteran edge rusher, whose reputation has long been that of a disruptive, if inconsistent force. Never quite the elite sack artist once projected, but always capable of generating pressure, setting the edge against the run, and raising the floor of a defensive line rotation that has seen disappointing returns from the likes of Dante Fowler, Sam Williams, and Donovan Ezeraku, all of whom have flashed but failed to sustain impact, while names like Marshawn Nealand and James Houston have struggled to seize opportunities, leaving the unit thin, predictable, and ineffective. And while some argue that Clowney's best days are behind him, others counter that his presence alone could stabilize a rotation desperate for both competence and intimidation. And if nothing else, his insertion would signal a recognition from the coaching staff that the status quo is unacceptable. Yet even this debate pales in comparison to the more radical cries echoing through the fan base, such as the suggestion to trade Trevon Diggs, a move that makes little financial or football sense given his $12 million cap hit this year and the lack of viable alternatives in the secondary, where injuries and underperformance have left the Cowboys scrambling, with rookies like Kalen Carson sidelined, veterans like Kyrie Elam disappointing, and nickel corners such as Triquest Bridges and Zion Shoulders offering depth but not dominance. And even with Bland expected back eventually, Dallas simply cannot afford to hemorrhage talent at a position already bleeding, meaning Diggs, however inconsistent or frustrating, remains essential for the foreseeable future, though it does feel increasingly likely that this will be his final season in a Cowboys uniform, as the franchise evaluates how to rebuild a secondary that has gone from strength to liability in record time. Layered atop all of this is the question of coaching, specifically whether Matt Eberflus, who oversees a defense that has now become a liability, deserves to be fired mid-season, an idea that resonates emotionally with fans but falters in practical application, since the staff lacks a ready-made play caller to replace him. And the deeper truth is that firing him without a competent successor risks further unraveling a defense already in freefall, which is why, for now, he remains. Though the drumbeat for change grows louder with every busted coverage and every third down conversion allowed. And then, hovering like a cloud over every conversation is the offense, which has not escaped blame either, though its shortcomings in Week 3, a fumble from Javonte Williams, an interception off George Pickens' deflection, a cascade of checkdowns when Dennis Allen's Saints blitzes disrupted passing lanes, feel less like systemic failure and more like the inevitable fallout of a defense that gave up long, demoralizing drives, leaving the offense to play uphill from the opening snap, a reality that evokes the metaphor one analyst put bluntly. Blaming the offense in this game is like blaming an overcooked meal on the Titanic. The food may not have been perfect, but the ship was already sinking, and that responsibility lies squarely with the defense, though the offense must also shoulder its share, because in the NFL, excuses carry little weight, and the only measure that matters is wins and losses. All of this leaves the Cowboys at a crossroads.